Good morning and welcome to the Daily Light Devotion. I'm recording for the 19th of February. I hope all of you have had a wonderful Wednesday yesterday and looking forward to today. Today we are going to start the book of Numbers. Yeah, seeing Jesus in Numbers chapter 1 and 2 and Mark chapter 3 verses 1 to 21 in the New Testament. So the book of Numbers, seeing Jesus through that. The theme, chapter 1 and 2, the theme is God's ordered people and his presence at the center and our identity in him. Right? The book of Numbers begins with preparation. God's people are redeemed, but now they must be organized for the journey. And Numbers 1 and 2 answer two important questions. Who belong to God's community, and how should God's people live around his presence? Uh, so, these chapters show us that God is a God of order, identity, and nearness, and all is fulfilled in Jesus Christ. So, chapter 1, God commands a census of Israel. Every tribe is counted, every family is recognized, and every man is recorded. This is not about numbers alone, it's about belonging and responsibility. So God knows exactly who belongs to him. Jesus knows his people personally. He says in John 10:14, "My sheep, I know my sheep, and my sheep know me." We are not forgotten or overlooked. God knows us by name, right? Verses 47 and 54 of chapter 1, the Levites are not counted with others. They are set apart to take care of the tabernacle. The role is protection, service, and worship. So Jesus is our perfect mediator. There is no mediator between God and mankind. There's one mediator, between God and mankind. That's Christ Jesus. 1 Timothy 2:5. Access to God is guarded and granted through Christ alone. Numbers chapter 2, God arranges the camp with precision. The tabernacle is placed in the center. Each tribe's camp is specific position. God is not distance, he lives among his people. Order reflects God's holiness and care, right? Jesus is the center of God's people, and God, the Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us. John 1:14. So life is ordered and rightly when Jesus is at the center. Verses 34, the chapter ends with a powerful statement. The Israelites did everything just as the Lord commanded. Unity flows from obedience, peace flows from order. Jesus is perfectly obeyed the Father. I always do what pleases him. John 8:29. Obedience brings harmony with God's purpose. Right? The pattern is we see identity, order, presence, obedience. This points us to Jesus. He gives us identity, he orders our lives, he brings God's presence near, and he leads us in obedience. So the key takeaways is God knows his people personally, right? God is a God of order and not chaos. God's presence belongs at the center. Every person has a role, right? God unites God's people. These are the key takeaways. Moving over to Mark chapter 3, verses 1 to 21, right? The theme is authority over legalism, compassion for the broken, and the cost of calling, right? In Mark 3, opposition to Jesus intensifies. What began as question now turns into hostility. The passage forces us a choice: protect religious system or recognize God at work. Here we see Jesus clearly, compassionate, authoritative, and costly to flow. Right? Jesus heals a man with a withered hand on the Sabbath. The religious leaders watch not to learn but to accuse. Right? Is it lawful to do good or evil? That's what Jesus asks, or remain silent. Jesus heals the man. Their response is anger and not joy. So it's lawful to do good, Mark chapter 3, verse 4 says. And legalism hardens the heart, compassion reveals God's heart. Verses 7 to 12, crowds follow Jesus for everywhere. Unclean spirits fall before him and call him the Son of God, and Jesus silences them. Jesus has undeniable spiritual authority. You are the Son of God. Mark 3:11. Jesus does not need public confirmation. His authority is absolute. Right? Jesus goes up a mountain and calls those he wanted. They come to him. So he appoints 12 to be with him, to preach, to have authority. Relationship comes before ministry. Jesus calls people into closeness before commission. He appointed 12 that they might be with him. Right? The ministry flows from relationship and not position. Mark chapter 3, verses 16 to 19, the list of 12 include fishermen, tax collectors, a zealot, and even Judas. They are his disciples, the closest people. So Jesus chooses imperfect people for his mission. Right? Jesus uses ordinary lives to enter eternal work. So God's calling is based on grace, not qualification. Verses 20 to 21, crowd presses is so tightly that Jesus cannot eat. His family hears about it and thinks he's out of his mind. Opposition now comes from those closest to him, right? And Jesus understands rejection, misunderstanding. Faithfulness to God may bring misunderstanding from others. The pattern is compassion, authority, calling, cost. And this reveals Jesus clearly. He shows mercy, he holds authority, he calls people close, he accepts the cost. So, what are some of the key takeaways? Jesus prioritizes mercy. Jesus has an absolute authority. Relationship comes from ministry, and God uses imperfect people. Following Jesus has a cost. I want to encourage you before we end today that these verses from 1 to 21, Mark chapter 3, remind us following Jesus is not about approval. It's about obedience. He calls us to be with him, to trust his authority, and to accept the cost of discipleship. When we choose compassion over comfort, we walk in the footsteps of Christ. And that's what I want to leave you with today. Have a wonderful day today, wonderful Thursday, and I will see you tomorrow.